What is up, guys? It's the Sound Alchemist, part of OneMindSyndicate, and today I'm back to talk about Warhammer 40k. When it comes to the Primarchs, there's always one that I forget about all the time, and that is Perturabo. But recently, on our third channel, the OMS podcast, we've been going through the Primarch novels, and although we haven't read the Perturabo novel just yet, he is featured within the Magnus novel, and he has instantly become one of my favorite Primarchs. So I decided to try and figure out more information about Perturabo, and in the novel Slaves to Darkness, there's a part where Nurgle sends some plague marines to try and sway Perturabo to their cause, and this is what happens. So without further ado, guys, let's go ahead and jump into this 40k lore. The ramp beneath the gunship's chin released with a creak. Flakes of rust and calcified bone fell to the decking. The autoloaders in Perturabo's armor cycled. Yellow streams swirled in the space beyond. A shape lumbered into view. Volk instinctively raised his weapon as it emerged into the light. Like the gunship, its form was crusted and spiked with coral-like growths. Scabrous boils the size of a fist dotted its torso. Pale fronds darted from tiny holes to lick the air. Beneath the growth, Volk could just identify the lines of a Tartarus-patterned Terminator plate. It was the thing's head that held his eyes. It was withered, its flesh sucked out of its features so that the parchment skin hung off of its skull. Its mouth was a razor line slashed across the dry creases. It had 3 eyes, 2 lidless and yellow with cataracts, the third a blood-red orb set in its forehead. It blinked with its third eye as it looked at the assembled host. Argonis was the first to speak. "And you are?" The figure did not look at him, but turned its head in the socket of its armor. The storm spoke, and we answered. Volk had expected a hiss or a dry rattle, but the voice was surprisingly strong. "You know who I am?" said Perturabo. The thing nodded, its armor creaking as it shifted posture. "You are the Lord of Iron. You are the warrior who passed through the eye's pupil and saw the truth. You are the breaker and the ender of worlds. Yes, we know who you are." "What have you done to our navigators?" growled Volk. "We," said the figure, shifting its gaze but still not looking at Volk, as though it were not seeing the same space or disposition of warriors as everyone else. "We have done nothing. The storm brought us here, and so here we are." It paused, and then its head turned slowly back, like a cog rotating in a machine, its red eye fixed on Perturabo. A murmur of weapons cycling to the point of firing filled the air. Perturabo shook his head. "The storm brought you? We are of the storm. It is our sire, and we its voice." Argonis stepped forward, bolt pistol in hand. He leveled the gun. "Your name," he growled. "I was named Kalek," said the figure, holding its gaze on Perturabo. "I was called a Luna Wolf once, and am now of the Sons of Horus." Argonis was very still. "Kalek has not been seen for 3 years," he said. "His force was lost in translation to Novageddon, and now we are found." Argonis' finger tensed on the trigger of his bolt pistol. Perturabo took a single step towards him. A targeted beam flicking from a shoulder-mounted weapon held steady on Argonis' gun hand. Argonis did not fire. Perturabo held the targeting beam still. After a long moment, the emissary dropped his aim and stepped back. "How were you sent?" said Perturabo to Kalek. "We are the storm. Its 7-fold winds are our sire, and we its children. Where it carries us, we go. We are its voice. It took us, the graveyard of ships, in its heart. It took us and gave us life again, and so we've come to speak for it." "The warp," breathed Volk. "Is it in them?" "The storm is within all," said Kalek. "What did the storm send you to say?" asked Perturabo. "It sent us to make you an offer," "There is a throne for you, Lord of Iron," said Kalik, and he shivered as he spoke. Volk noticed a flash of red on the dry paper lips. "A throne that weeps with the tears of your enemies, and with the throne a crown that once on your brow will make the Lord of Iron your blood eternal. You are rotting, Lord of Iron. The layer of metal on your skin and bind the killing edges are closer to you, because they make you feel the strength that is bleeding out of you. You feel this truth. You know it in the fever tremble of your skin." Kalik's body was moving, his shoulders heaving as though the muscles inside his armor were writhing even as his voice held steady. "The sixfold prince has bitten deep and feasted long. The wound festers with your soul, and you are dying. Your iron is rust." Perturabo did not move, but Volk thought that the shadows deepened in the hollows of his face. Kalik's convulsions ceased. His chin was wet with blood. "You resist," said Kalik. "You fight, but that only steals more from you. You seek the son of blood, the dog of bones, snapping in its brass collar. Father Storm sees this. It sees and knows that if you find the hound of red sands, you will die. You are weak, and he is beyond your weakness. He will not yield, and he will not obey. He will test your mettle, and it will be wanting. The Father sees, the Father knows." Kalik took a rasping breath and bowed his head. "You can rise, Lord. You can be eternal, unbreaking, unbreakable." "Is that the extent of what have you come to say?" asked Perturabo. Kalik raised and dipped his head. "Yes," he said. "Good," said Perturabo. The air screamed. Beams of incandescent energy and streams of rounds burned through the space between Perturabo and Kalik. The warrior vanished. Armor plating, flesh, and metal tore into shreds and vapor. Volk's visor dimmed to dull the blaze of light. Perturabo was a blur, charging forwards through the flames. The rest of the Iron Warriors froze to the point of firing as the Primarch passed in front of them. Kalik's gunship was trying to rise from the deck. Thrusters coughed dirty jets of flame. Cannon mounts spun, grinding bone and rust flakes from their fittings. The Lord of Iron struck the front of the gunship as it rose from the deck. He had not a weapon in his hands. The hammer forge breaker still rested in the hands of one of his iron circle, but it didn't matter. Power wreathed the Primarch's fists as the first blow landed. Armor shattered. Lightning arced out, and the gunship dipped. Its nose shattered, oil and clotted blood showering into the deck. A broken gun mount twitched in its chin. Perturabo punched into the wound. An explosion thumped into the air, and the gunship burst apart. Shreds of corroded armor spun out, rattling off the shields of the Iron Circle as they surged to their master's side. The cloud of flame rolled upwards, smoke curdling back at its edges. The air reeked of charring meat and melting steel. Perturabo simply walked from the fire. Soot darkened his armor. Fire glinted from its edges, and for a second it seemed to breathe in the inferno. "All ships engaged," he said, his voice carrying over the fading roar of the explosion. "Make ready for warp translation on my command." "The navigators," began Argonis. "We will face the storm." Volk's augmented eye flickered with a sudden cascade of tactical data. "Lord, they are launching boarding craft and torpedoes." Volk blinked, his eyelid closing over the metal sphere of his right eye. It did not interrupt the flow of command data. There are hundreds of them. "Launch interceptors, all squadrons," said Perturabo, halting in his stride. Suddenly still, his gaze was now hollow. "Burn them from the void." And there you have it, guys. This just goes to show you that Perturabo is just a badass. He is chaos in all forms, not bowing down to Nurgle or any other chaos god. This dude is just chaos undivided, and he is making it known that he will be nobody's servant. So this is really interesting because I always forgot about Perturabo. He was basically a less cool Iron Hands, aka Ferrus Manus. But now that I've known more about who this Primarch is, how integral he was to the Horus Heresy, and how he was basically given all these shitty jobs during the Great Crusade and the Heresy, that he just said, I've had enough, and now it's my turn to do what I want and get what I want in return, and he's doing just that. Because as easily as he could have said yes, he could have been a follower to Nurgle. But here we see that he chose to listen to his own ways and just kind of fight against chaos. So this guy is completely, I wouldn't say a renegade, but more so just undivided, and he just works for himself. So again, really awesome excerpt here from the novel Slaves to Darkness. If you guys have any other interesting showings for Perturabo, let me know down in the comments below. And that's all I got for today, guys. Don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe for more Warhammer 40k lore. If you guys can head on over to the OMS podcast, where you guys can catch us talking about the Primarch novels. And you can check out the For the Greater Wall Q&A channel, where we answer all your questions. And that's all I got. This has been the Sound Alchemist, part of OneMindSyndicate, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.